This is the book of Psalms, chapter 64, verse 5 in the NLT. They encourage each other to do evil and plan how to set their traps in secret. Who will ever notice, they ask. As they plot their crimes, they say, we have devised a perfect plan. Yes, their human heart and mind are cunning. Shalom, shalom. Before I begin this lesson, all praise, honor, and glory goes to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, bishop, and elders, a great millstone that rule well, and peace and blessing be multiplied on you, brethren, out there teaching this word in our sincerity and in truth. Shalom to the elect, 144,000, which is the governing body of the kingdom of heaven, under our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai, Hamashiach, under the rule of King David, and the rest of the elect out there, Shalom. I'm the brother Dhamma Agabar, out here with another lesson, Lord willing to edify through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. All right. And I was coming across this article, man, and it's literally going down, man. All right. Esau's finally putting his foot on the gas, and these devils are moving forward with their NWO agenda. And we know, in order for them to fully establish themselves, there's a few countries that needs to be overrun and overtaken and totally subjugated under these elites, which is, Venezuela, a lot of countries in South America, and Iran. OK, and these devils are, putting the screws to Iran, and they're causing all type of turmoil and chaos. And you see, and this is why we cannot be ignorant to Satan's devices, and you can't be so naive not to believe that the West and the tiny tops are not playing a gargantuan role in what's happening over there in Iran, because they know they're getting ready to go to war with Iran. They know that Iran needs to be subdued, and what they're doing right now is, weakening and destabilizing it so that when they finally decide to go in fully militarily, that it can be weakened, that it could be an easier target to be destroyed and taken and overran. But as we know, it's going to play a serious role in prophecy, because we know Russia, as you read in Ezekiel 38th chapter, is going to have to step in and be a guard to Iran. You're going to have Turkey, and you're going to have other allies of Russia and BRICS and Iran going to eventually have to step in and to stop the West and the tiny tops from, totally just taking down this ally of Iran. And you be a damn fool not to believe that a lot of this shit is being orchestrated from outside, from outside enemies, because that's the MO of Esau Edom. That's the cunning of the wicked, man. And it's going down in Iran. It says Iran plunged into internet blackout. Protests spread as Trump issues fresh warnings. And a lot of this stuff is being orchestrated from the outside. I did a lesson yesterday showing you that, the Mossad and the West are, heavily involved in what's taking place over there in Iran, first and foremost by their sanctions, by destabilizing the currency, and that's what Esau does, man. Before he sends in, he has a playbook he goes by. He'll send in the economic hitman. He'll try to bribe. He'll try to send in sanctions. He'll cut you off from importing and exporting. He'll make it hard for you to, Iran to sell oil. And now they're attacking their currency to where, it's destabilizing the country. People are fed up. They're getting the people to protest and to be fed up with their government, in which a lot of those people that are out there protesting, yeah, you might have some of the average citizens pissed off, but a lot of it can be, agent provocateurs, man. Individuals hired and paid and trained by their enemies to go into that country and to start revolutions, to start protests, and to, to kickstart, their agenda to destabilize and totally take over these countries, man. And it's going down over there, man. Hey, and prophecy, man, is moving. Hey, the Most High is working. Hey, and we're living in beautiful times, man. So let's read some of this article. It says, by all accounts, protests and unrest have been spreading rapidly in Iran. Now over a week and a half into economic and anti-government protests, which have begun to grind the country to a halt. On Thursday, the demonstrations have disrupted life in the capital in a big way, and there are reports of nationwide internet and cellular outages, you see. And this is, and a lot of that shit can be done by the outside, by their enemies, We know that the tiny tops possess this type of technology to where they can interrupt, nationwide internet services. They can cause blackouts. They can cause all type of things to happen like this, because it's further going to justify Trump in saying that if civilians die and if, the Iranian government continues to, come down on the people, America's going to come in there and try to play the hero. We're going to come in and save the day. We're going to help the Iranian people, which, that's all cap and that's all BS. That's just them being justified and, then putting boots on the ground and being justified and, taking over that country, man. So you can't, like I've been saying for months, man, we're living in a time of heavy, we're living in a time of heavy, how did I quote it? Of heavy enchantments and heavy deception, man. A lot of this stuff, you can't just look at it for face value, because, when you hear about what's happening in Iran, especially from Western media, they're going to heavily propagandize, what's going on over there. And they're going to present it in a way to where it's going to make it look like America has to step in and to be the hero. And Trump's going to go over there. He's going to subdue the bad guys. He's going to subdue the evil government of Iran and, set up, a democratically, and set up a democracy so we can be peaceful, so we can be, safe, and the people can prosper. We'll take over the oil. We'll get rid of the bad guys, and we'll put in the good, all of that BS, man. But we know ultimately it's all because they want to take over that country for, multiple reasons, It says anti-government slogans and calls to rise up have been observed in Tehran. See, that's why you can't believe everything that you see. We're living in times of mass deception. And a lot of this stuff could be AI. A lot of this stuff, like I said, is propaganda. A lot of these videos they're showing, they could be fake. They could be old. They could be whatever. You just never know. But this we do know. We do know that the tiny tops in the West want to destabilize, and they want to take over Iran, man, very, very badly. We know that it's a very strategic spot, and they know that they need to sever, the relationships between Iran and China and Russia and Venezuela and BRICS. You see, so these things like this can be, are being done just for that purpose. It says, and in some places, supporters of exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi have actually heeded his repeat public calls to take to the streets. And you see, and I guarantee you, this guy, Prince Reza, is brought and paid for by these elites or by some type of democratic or some type of EU or Western back, some Western back, he's brought and paid for, man. And now all of a sudden they're throwing his name out there to go back and to take back the country. They're saying that, the Iranians are calling for for the exiled crown prince to come back and to bring the monarch. This is all BS, man. It's all part of the theater of war, and they pulled this same play plenty of times in many other different countries, man. So, hey, they're over there doing it in Iran. It says, repeat public calls to take to the streets, though this pro-Shah contingency likely only remains an extreme minority at this stage. It says net blocks have alleged that Iranian authorities have intentionally blocked internet access to the citizenry, possibly as a precursor to a bigger crackdown after dozens have been reported dead. And what did Trump say? If you kill the Iranian citizens, we are locked and loaded. You see, so you have to understand it's in their best interest to present this narrative to the simple-minded sheeple so that the West can be justified in going in there and go in lock and loaded and team up with the tiny tops to totally take down the evil Islamic Iranian regime. Same playbook, same old BS, man. Hey, but this is beautiful because we know it's going to lead to prophecy. It's going to lead to Russia's going to have to really get involved, and Turkey and other allies to put an end to the to this outside interference, man. It says the internet outages were first reported in western city of Kermanshah earlier in the day, Thursday, but in the night hours, the New York Times is freshly describing, of course, the New York Times, come on now, as the government crackdown in various cities, internet connection data showed an abrupt and near total drop in connection levels in Iran on Thursday afternoon, according to NetBlocks, an internet monitoring group in the Georgia Institute of internet outage detection and analysis database. The country is nearly completely offline and in the dark as far as online communication and access. And this is the perfect opportunity for them to, to say all type of shit and make up all type of propaganda and psychological operations and things to get, the sheeple emotionally involved in this situation so they can be justified in going in locked and loaded, man. You see? It says this is the likely to only compound the nation's problems and stir up more sustained protests after late last month. Remember, order ab chaos is a major component in this in these elites' agenda, man. See, so they're gonna let all hell break loose over there in Iran. So what? They can bring the order out of it by bringing in the military, bringing in the West. Don't be surprised if out of all of this, the tiny tops or America's number one ally surprisingly gets attacked or hit with something. So, they can be justified and doing what they need to do. It says after late last month, a sudden currency slide amid already difficult economic conditions resulted in key central Tehran shops shuttering in protest and panic. U.S.-led sanctions have loomed large over all of this, you see? So America is playing a role. They're intentionally destabilizing this country, man. Like I said, putting sanctions, putting more pressure on the currency, making it harder for the average everyday person to live and to survive, to where they get fed up and they're protesting, and then they can easily slide in their paid agents, their agent provocateurs to go in to stir shit up, man, and to create the perfect scenario that Trump said that Iran better not do. So what? They can go in locked and loaded, man. And as we know, Esau is on a rampage right now. His pride is at an all-time high. He's in that conqueror, spirit taking over the Western Hemisphere. They're in this spirit of putting America first and doing what's best for our interests. And we need to conquer and take down and, put America back on the map, so to speak, which is beautiful because we know it's going to eventually lead to prophecy being fulfilled. It says Iranian Mossad Pezeshkian on Thursday called for restraint among police and security forces in dealing with the raging crowds. Any violent or coercive behavior should be avoided, said Pezeshkian in an online statement. He called for utmost restraint as well as dialogue, engagement, and listening to the people's demands. Whatever. Look at this. It says people are watching President Trump's reaction very closely. You see, and this is the sorcery and the witchcraft and the deception that, this devil is able to do. Exactly what Trump said they better not do all of a sudden is happening. Because why? They're making it happen. They're orchestrating it. They're manipulating the situation to be the perfect storm for justification of these devils to go in there and to do what they want to do, man. It says, especially coming off his giving the order for military forces to go into Venezuela to oust Maduro. You see, he has reiterated that the United States will strike very hard if Iran starts killing protesters. You see that? It's just all justified for them to come in guns a-blazing, man. All order ab chaos is literally taking place in Iran. But like I said, it's beautiful because it's going to ultimately lead to prophecy. It's going to lead to, those small hats getting involved, Russia getting involved, and America being drawn out, and that's going to spark this third world's woe. It says, however, he has also lately seemed to suggest that violence or deaths during crowd control can be ambiguous and hard to assess. This perhaps gives him an out at a moment the U.S. hawks are circling and members of his own cabinet might be pressuring towards action. But a fresh statement from Vice President J.D. Vance has injected something new and raised the stakes in a significant way. He's calling for the Iranians to enter fresh negotiations with Washington. You see, talk to us, holla at us, hey, we'll straighten the situation out. But we know how they really want to straighten it out, man. It's not with negotiations and peace talks. They're going to come in there they want to come in with the hammer, with the sword, with the military, It says Washington, or he has put it in fresh remarks, to actually have a real negotiation over his nuclear program, blah, 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 blah. It says, obviously, the Iranian regime has a lot of problems. As the president of the United States has said, the smartest thing for them to have done, it was true 2 months ago, is true today, is for them to actually have a, well, I don't say, but I don't want to click on that. It says, whatever. Iran leadership is increasingly pointing to the violence being unleashed on security forces and police by at least some of the protesters and rioters. Also, the scenario of Mossad or CIA operatives who might be exacerbating the situation remains a real and plausible threat. No, that is the threat. Very, very, very highly likely that is the threat. You see, because this is what this man does. This is his MO. This is part of his order ab chaos, man. And he's ran this play centuries, man. He's mastered it. He knows exactly how to get countries destabilized, to start a protest, to get the people, make it seem as if the people are fed up. They need, they're begging for a change. They're begging for the West. They're begging for America to come in and help and save them. But a lot of that shit is being done intentionally, man. You see, that's why I read this, man. It says they encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them, and they'll get on TV and just lie straight to your face, tell you that, make it seem as if they're not involved, like they're not pulling any strings, like this is not part of the agenda. This is not what they want. And, make it seem as if they're coming in to save the day and to play the hero, man. It's crazy, man. What else is in here? It says various external monitors have said the protests have now spread over 100 cities and towns spanning all 31 of Iran's provinces. At least 2,200 demonstrators have been detained, according to reports. Yep. So people are dying over there. It says this suggests that at least in some locales, anti-government groups could become armed. Those are some external powers like Israel that would probably applaud such internal fracturing, which would only serve to further weaken the Islamic Republic, you see? And that's exactly what they're doing. And don't be shocked if these protesters all of a sudden start becoming armed. And you better believe they're going to get those weapons from who, from the TTs, okay? Now look at this. And like I said, that could be real. It could be fake. That could be old footage. It's just hard to tell nowadays, especially with AI and especially, the way this man is moving. He's very tacky, man, and they can make a lot of things look real. They can make a lot of things look like whatever they want it to look like, but that's why, you have to really look at outside news sources and outside publications to really get the full scope of what's going on. But one thing we do know is, the way this man operates, that it's not far-fetched that the tiny tops in the West are heavily involved in these so-called protests, man. All right. And this is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. I'll read that in the NLT. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in heavenly places. Therefore, put on every piece of the Most High's armor so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will be standing firm. Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of the Most High's righteousness. For shoes, put on that peace that comes from the good news so that you will be fully prepared. In addition to all of these, hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the devil. See? But ultimately, the point is, hey, we're dealing with very, spiritual wickedness in high places and sorcery and witchcraft and deception and AI. And like I said, it's very hard in these times to really believe whatever you see, because, this devil has the ability to deceive, man, to make things look like, one thing, but really they're the other. But we know, ultimately through this, through prophecy, where all of this is headed, and why all of these things are ultimately happen, man, because, hey, it's going to lead to prophecy being fulfilled, man. So with that, Lord willing, this was edifying. All praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And to the next one, Shalom.